Hi, I'm Cody DeLong and welcome to this short video on Creativity Booster for Artists. In this video we'll be exploring ways to expand our creativity and in particular how to employ a little more abstract thinking to our representational paintings. One way to begin exploring this is to release our child mind and just play without worrying about results. So I'm asking you to open up and release your mind from results thinking. What you produce today is not important. Your thought process is what matters. So release the child and let's play. Today we're going to explore 3 simple and directly related exercises. The first 2 require only a pencil and a sketchbook, and then the third one we'll be working with color. You can use any medium you like, from paint to colored pencil. It's really whatever's easy for you. Again, the results don't matter, it's the process that matters. Of course, you can pause this video at any time to get your materials ready. So, I'll wait. Okay, now that you're ready to play, let's begin. All right, step 1, take your sketchbook and your pencil and draw these 4 shapes. We have a circle, triangle, square, and rectangle. Pause the video, take a few minutes, and just sketch those out at the top of the page in your sketchbook. Next, take any 3 or 4 of those objects and create some kind of design or pattern that you feel is pleasing to your eye. And this is just obviously, this is just an abstract thought process here, and you can vary the sizes, you can stretch them, you can do whatever you want. There's no rules, except that it's a flat design. These are just like kind of, think of them sort of like puzzle pieces that you're arranging in a pleasing way. Go ahead and pause the video and do 3 or 4 different designs. Here's just a couple to kind of get you started thinking. Here's a short video of your next assignment, which is to take some of our shapes and create them in a 3-dimensional way. I've chosen to take the triangle and turn it into a cone. It could just as easily have been a pyramid or even a 3-sided pyramid. That's up to you to decide. I chose to make it a cone. And I want you to draw it in such a way that you're going to see at least 2 sides of the objects. I've chosen to place the objects slightly below my line of vision, slightly below the horizon line. That way we're looking slightly down upon them, and that's what I'm basing my perspective on. Again, this is just pure invention, and I'm imagining the rectangle as sort of a plank that's embedded into the cone. Again, we're looking slightly down on these items. And the next thing I want you to think about is adding light and shadow to your design. Here I'm deciding, okay, let's add a 3rd element. We're going to put the sphere in there, but we're going to make it kind of small, and it's just floating in space. Now, at the moment, all 3 of these are floating in space. What anchors them, of course, is going to be creating some kind of light and shadow. And so right now you can see I'm drawing a little arrow, and this is a 3-dimensional arrow. And what it tells me is that I'm choosing to make my light source, my sun in this case, it's to the right, but it's also slightly in front of the objects. And so that gives me some information to think about. That means the cast shadows will fall slightly behind the objects, since the light source is slightly in front of them. And, you know, is this 100% accurate? I don't know. I don't have these objects to observe, but that's the point. We're just making it up and trying to think about how would this be lit, how would the shadows fall, where would they be placed, how big would they be, etc. Again, it's just we're exercising our three-dimensional mind. Where would that cast shadow be from the floating ball? I have no idea. I'm just making a guess based on the proportion of the other elements and where I've chosen to place my light source. So give this a try. It's a lot of fun, and I think if you can do, again, 2 or 3 of these type of designs, it's going to be really beneficial. Here I'm deciding to take the previous design and do a variation on that. And in this case, instead of putting the plank into the side of the cone, as you'll see in a second, I'm choosing to poke the cone up through the center of the plank, and you know, it's just a slight variation of the design. And this is what's kind of, it's interesting how your mind works when you start experimenting with slightly different variations on a thought. Where to put that sphere, how big to make it. I think in this case, I'm moving it over here to the right and slightly above the rectangle, or the plank, as it were. I'm going to continue with the same idea for the light source, which will be above and to the right and slightly ahead of our arrangement. And again, I'm just kind of guessing. These are kind of 3/4 in the light. And, you know, where would that cast shadow be? And how far does that plank hang over the edge of the cone? What kind of shadow does that create? What kind of light shape does it create? If there's a cast shadow on the ground from the plank, where does that land in relation to everything else? And how far back does it go? You know, these are all just, you're kind of measuring in your mind's eye. And that's really the point of this. Okay, now it's your turn. Try 3 or 4 or more designs. There's no limit. And just have fun with it. The main point is just to get yourself thinking about shapes, perspective, light and shadow, proportion of one object to another, and also to try to create some kind of pleasing design to you. So pause the video and turn yourself loose. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed doing those drawings, and now we're going to pick our favorite one and do a small painting of it. I would keep this painting fairly small. Again, all these exercises are designed to be simple and easy to do. So I've got here, I think, a 7x10 panel, and you can see that it's toned, an earth tone color. That's just by accident. Just happened to be something I had laying around, and I chose it for the size, not for the color. In this case, it wouldn't have mattered to me if it was a white canvas. So don't worry about the tone. You can use whatever you like, or maybe you're doing colored pencil or pastel or something. Any medium is fine. But the point is, we're going to take our three-dimensional drawing with our light and shadow plan, and now we're going to add color. And the color plan is entirely up to you. Again, just choose something from your imagination. It can be more of a monotone style, or it can be a rainbow of colors. That's your decision to make. So here's what I came up with, and my first thought about this was that I wanted the objects to be on the cooler side. So the objects and the background are in the cooler spectrum, blues and purples, and the only warmth in the painting would be the light itself. So the light source is kind of a yellowish light source, and that was my primary thought about what to do in this case with the colors. And so as you can see, the background is more bluish. The objects are all the same color, kind of a purplish gray. And the light source itself is more of a yellowish, a warmer, almost an ochre color. And so it's just an interesting experiment to think that way. So you can see what we're doing here. We're designing the architecture, thinking about shapes, perspective, proportion, coming up with the basic architecture, and then on top of that, we are laying our own color scheme. And you can apply this thinking to pretty much anything you're painting, from portrait to still life to landscape. You can always caricature and rearrange shapes, and you can always come up with your own variation of whatever color scheme you think is appropriate for your painting. Okay, so pause the video, go do your painting, and when you're finished, hopefully you find that it will be a lot of fun just playing. Again, remember, this is all about play. And when you're finished, let's meet right back here. So those were 3 quick, simple, fun little exercises. I hope you enjoyed it. And now you may be asking yourself, well, how does this relate to representational painting? Well, in the first exercise, you were thinking about shapes, not things. Kind of like puzzle pieces. And this is a critical step in good composition. In the second exercise, you were giving your shapes volume, thinking about light and shadow shapes as well, like we do after the block-in stage of a painting. And in the third exercise, you were thinking about a color scheme based solely on your idea, with no outside reference. And this is excellent training for developing your own color sense. For me, these experiments often lead to a series of works. And in this case, I did a whole series of cactus paintings, which I called my Suspect Saguaro series, where I experimented not only with color, but also with texture, edges, and even subject matter. In this case, I'm turning a saguaro into a lightsaber. But even when you're doing something more traditional, like this one, there are subtle ways to add some abstraction to an otherwise traditional scene. In this case, if you look closely at the saguaros, I've made these little, like, tiles of color within the saguaros. And they're just brush strokes of, slight variation of color, but it just adds that little bit of unexpectedness to the painting. If you saw this painting from across the room in a gallery, you might think, oh, nice sunset with saguaros. And then you come up a little closer and you're like, whoa, what's that? What's going on there? So again, these kind of experiments can lead to exciting new directions for your work. And that is my hope for you, that this experiment today has made you think in a little bit different way as far as how you approach your work. So what did you think about the mini course? I know the exercises were simple, and hopefully you found it enjoyable. The whole point of that was to get you to think a little differently, to think about the painting process in steps or layers. And so in the first exercise, we were just dealing with the first layer, shapes. Then in the second step, we were adding volume, light and shadow to try to create a more dynamic design. And then we added another layer, which was color. And we could have continued on with other layers like atmosphere, and we could have started talking about edges and paint application and many other things. So this was just to give you a taste of some of the things that you will learn in Mastering Light. So thank you for joining me today. And if you're interested in learning more about Mastering Light, or you already know you'd like to join us, again, I run this course only twice a year. Registration is now open, and it closes on August 19th. Our first Zoom session begins on August 20th. It runs for 6 weeks, and you have lifetime access to all the training videos and the Zoom sessions, which will be recorded and posted the next morning after each session. And as a thank you for joining me today, I'm going to offer you a 40% discount. Use the code you see below me on the screen at checkout to get your 40% off the full price of Mastering Light. I hope you'll join us. It will change your painting journey.